Jason Lloyd of The Athletic on the Fan Hotline. Jason, welcome to the show.
I'm cuddly. What are you talking about? I'm very cuddly.
Can't you tell? I feel like you play it like a holiday weight. Like all year round, you're like, you know what I mean? That's good. That's very good. I think that's good.
A holiday weight. Did you just call him fat?
No. That's the cuddly. Cuddly is like that's what the holiday weight. If you had like a holiday weight all year round, that's like I feel like that's where I'm at in life too right now, Jason. So no big deal. But you're definitely not fat. You're definitely not fat.
I've been a holiday weight for quite a few holidays now. Then, if that's the case.
Jason, of all the coaches you've covered in your time in sports, which one would most likely put a positivity rabbit in a locker room to get the vibes going in the right direction?
Oh, gosh. What a question. I've covered a lot of coaches. Freddie? Would it be Freddie? That sounds like a Freddie thing.
That's a good call.
Definitely a Freddie thing. Great answer.
I was thinking Tressel, but he was too buttoned up to have any fun like that, so I would say Freddie.
And then Freddie would split a 12er with the
rabbit. With the rabbit and get carried. Never mind. Never mind.
Actually, the rabbit's a perfect partner. Freddie can have all 12.
Let me tell you something. Freddie wasn't here long, but the stories of Freddie were legendary of his behavior. It was quite something.
If only the football was legendary.
Yeah, right.
Let's get to the start here. I guess we'll start with this growing sense that maybe Kevin Stefanski would be open to greener pastures, maybe be more comfortable in other place. Do you have any kind of background on Kevin and kind of where he is after 6 years with the Cleveland Browns?
I'm like being totally honest. I've been out of the loop like most of the day. I haven't been plugged in. That's the first I'm hearing of that. Where did that come from?
Well, we had Albert on yesterday who kind of hinted at that, and then we had the report a week ago that said Kevin would be a prime candidate if he was let go in Cleveland.
Oh, well, that's true. The second part of that's like some of us keep saying that, and everyone keeps getting angry. You can get as angry as you want. That's just the reality, but that there are a lot of teams who'd be interested in him. In terms of like him wanting to leave, like I have no idea what I'm sure there's part of him that's like, screw this, man. Like that's enough. I mean, think about some of the questions that he's had to answer this year and how absurd all of this has gotten. And some of this, like he's worked in the NFL for 20 years and he has to answer about who he's giving game balls to. And he has to talk about like this, he hasn't been asked this directly, but like this whole notion of like sabotaging your rookie's career is absolutely absurd and it's offensive. And if I had worked for 20 years and someone came to me with that, I'd be like, you know what? I'm good. But at the same time, like this is the side of it that nobody like talks about or thinks about. Players don't ever have to worry about this because they're done playing. Like their careers are over before it gets to this. His kids are at that age now where it's really hard to pull them. And that's not to say it's impossible. NFL coaches get fired all the time. They go on to different jobs and their family goes with them. But I've known plenty of coaches and executives who got stuck in a city after they got fired because of their kids. And his kids are right around in that age where it's really hard to pull them away from friend groups and from schools and from teams and all this stuff. So, like, that's the side of it that, like, fans don't care about that. I totally get it. But these are still humans with lives, and it's hard on the families and it's hard on the kids when you have to pick up and move. So that would be, I think, one of the – and I have no idea. I'm just guessing as someone who has faced those career choices himself of – do you want to pack up and move and go to another city and yank your kids away from everything that they know and they've grown accustomed to, or do you want to stay and stick it out? That's a real life choice. But listen, last year was really, 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 really hard on everybody in that building, and now they've just been hit with a double dose of it this year. So I'm sure there's a lot of miserable feelings all the way around in there right now. But I have no idea if he wants to stay or go.
Well, which do you think is the better job? If he was offered the Giants job tomorrow, let's say, is it the Giants or is it staying with the Browns and seeing how this whole thing goes?
Well, what's funny, like first, so again, I would look where a lot of people probably don't look. I would look at ownership first. Who has a better ownership group? Because I was just having this conversation. I'm going to go on like a really long-winded answer, so I'm going to try and cut it down really short because that's not what you asked me. I was just having this conversation with NBA executive the other day talking about the importance of ownership. And his point was like, most coaches are the same. They're about the same. GMs are about the same. What really determines winning is ownership. And so look at the Giants' ownership. I would take the Giants' ownership over the Browns' ownership. And then you look at the quarterback. Well, they could have had Jackson Dart here. So what's he feel about Jackson Dart? Because you could have had him in Cleveland if you really liked him that much, and they passed. So that's just food for thought. Which job is better? The Giants have a more recent history of winning than the Browns do. They've been kind of a mess lately, but I would probably say the Giants' job is a better job. This is not an attractive job. You got 2 number 1 picks next year. That's great. The cap is a mess right now. You have no offensive line, literally no offensive line, and the ownership's reputation is well known throughout the league. Whether they've tried to change that or not in recent years, that's still their stigma or their reputation. And depending on what they do with Shador, he is not a coach for everyone. There's a lot of coaches who won't probably even touch this job because of the Shedeur situation where it stands right now. People want to deal with this and answer the questions Kevin's had to answer this year. So let's see how this all shakes out. But right now, I would say the Giants' job is more attractive for a lot of reasons.
Jason, how do you view Shedeur through 3 starts?
Improving and getting much better. And I was one of the ones saying he's not ready, right? Because that's what I was being told the whole time. He's not ready. He's not ready. He's not ready. He's not ready. And certainly Baltimore didn't look like he was ready. Raiders game looked much better. And it just this was the first game because my point for last week had been, okay, well, if he's going to play quarterback, then you've got to let him play quarterback. At some point, you have to take the seatbelts off and let him actually play. And I totally get why they were as conservative as they were with the Raiders. It was his first start. It makes perfect sense. Second start, Niners, very, very windy, not great weather conditions. This one, it's cold. Yeah, it's cold. But I actually took my son to the game, and we sat in the stands. So it was cold, but there was no wind whatsoever. So if ever there's a time to sort of see what he can do and sort of cut him loose, this is it. It's a 1-win team at home. It's cold, but it's not windy. He's used to the cold. He played at Colorado. So let's see what he can do. And he made a couple of throws that I've been waiting to see, sort of like those tight window throws. Can you throw a guy open? And he did that. And that was really impressive. Now, of course, he's got to do it again and again and again. But he had another long screen pass go, and I was like, okay, everyone's going to go crazy because it's a screen and it goes for 60 yards or whatever it is. But then sort of it's funny, as I was talking to my sons, we're watching the game. First half, he was good. Third quarter, I thought was shaky. Start of the fourth quarter, I thought was shaky. And then the last, 7-8 minutes is when he really sort of turned it on. And up until that point, I kind of thought all right, well, this is sort of it felt like the Niners game to be some good, some bad, not anything really that's going to dazzle you and wow you, and nothing that'll make you run from them. And then the last 7 or 8 minutes of that game I thought were really impressive.
What do you think's more likely? Shedeur gets traded in the offseason because this is one audition for 31 other teams, or is the starter week 1 in 2026?
All right, so here's the thing. This idea of trade, here's the only thing I haven't been able to figure out, and I'm not going to answer that question because I'm going to talk around it because I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
But here's what I haven't been able to figure out. So I wrote after the Ravens game, and I had so it was probably 10 to 12 days before the Ravens game is the first time I had heard, Kevin said they're going to redshirt him. They're not going to play him. It was probably about a week and a half before that Baltimore game was the first time I had heard that said to me directly. And I poked around and I kind of heard it again. And so now you go to the Baltimore game, and we know the history of on the field. So here's the part that I haven't been able to figure out yet. So you've got 2 veteran quarterbacks that you signed, right? Pickett and Flacco. Mm-hmm. One's going to be your starter. One's going to be your backup. When they drove home from the draft Friday night, Dylan Gabriel was their third quarterback, and their room was set. Jimmy Haslam told you when we left the draft that night, drafting Shedeur was not at top of mind, or whatever the quote was. I'm paraphrasing, but they had their quarterback room set. They had 2 veterans, and they had Dylan as sort of I don't think Dylan was ever looked at as a franchise quarterback that's going to spend 10 or 15 years as a starter in Cleveland. I think they looked at him as a guy that they liked, a guy who could come along slowly because he's got 2 veterans in front of him. Dylan was going to be the third guy who's sort of brought along slowly. And you could argue, why are you wasting a top 100 pick on a backup quarterback when you have so many holes on the roster? And I think that's completely fair. So my question then is, where does Shedeur fit in? If you take him and you're going to redshirt him and you're not going to play him this year and you're going to look at quarterback again next year, when are you going to look at him as your option? And that's why that's the only reason why I think maybe there's some merit to the whole trade thing, is because I don't know where he fits on their timeline. Now, he can play his way into their timeline based on how plans don't matter. It's the old line, you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. It doesn't matter what your plans are. What happens in real life is what you have to base it on. And maybe he just plays so well over these last few games that he forces them to rethink their options here. But I've said this, I've read this a couple of times, and I'm adamant about this. I don't believe Shedeur can be the backup quarterback on this team again next year. Either he's your starter or you move on, because no coach is going to want to go through this again of every single week, Shedeur. Either he's your starter or send him somewhere else. And I don't think that's unreasonable at all.
Jason, Lloyd of The Athletic on the fan hotline there. With 4 games to go this season, big picture, what's on the line for the Cleveland Browns?
Potentially figuring out. See, you can. This is a much larger conversation, but you can commit to Shedeur for next year without, you don't have to give the guy a 10-year contract. Play him next year if you want, and if it's a disaster, well then here we go again with the 2027 quarterback draft with Julian Sayin and Arch, and we all know the Manning family's history with Arch. So I don't think that's unreasonable, but he's got to play really well this last month. And if he plays well this last month and they pull an upset or two, what's the harm in giving him next year, unless you are completely sold on Fernando Mendoza being the quarterback you've always wanted, and who's making that call? Is the GM still going to be here? Is the head coach going to be here? So who's determining that? So what's at stake? Well, figuring out whether or not possibly you can ride this into being a franchise quarterback. You certainly have to make a decision as head coach. And beyond that, can you pull an upset or two? It's certainly, I don't know, it certainly feels like Barry's coming back. If the way that they're talking about Deshaun, the way that they got the messaging out a week or two ago on this Deshaun thing, that he's going to be on the roster next year, which I think is a tragic mistake, but that's another conversation. I don't know how they know that already unless they know the GM's coming back, because another GM may say, no, we're not doing that. And unless it's just Jimmy saying, no, if I'm paying him, he's going to be here. So I don't know. There's a lot at stake, and there's nothing at stake at the same time. Does that make sense? I don't know. I've kind of talked in circles on that one.
No, it is interesting, though, but it's interesting you also bring up Deshaun, too, because we've been trying to figure out what place does he have. The idea that if you have Shedeur, if you have Dylan, you have Deshaun, and then even if you take a rookie quarterback in 2026, then, Jason, we're out of roster spots here.
Yeah, and that's why I go back to either Shedeur's your starter or he's somewhere else. I just don't see that working out. And maybe that was the Browns' master plan the whole time, because I wrote a few weeks ago, I thought they made a mistake when they didn't go to Philly.
Oh.
You could go there, you could sit behind an MVP or Super Bowl MVP in Philly or whatever and learn and take a year or two, and then at the appropriate time they start, marching out the soldiers at NFL Network and ESPN of how great Shedeur looks and how much progress he's made in a year or so, and now you flip a 5th-round pick into a 2nd-round pick or a 3rd-round pick. And maybe that's the Browns' grand plan in all this, is they were going to draft him and sit on him for a year. I have no idea. I just don't know. Based on their original timeline of 2 veterans and then Dylan, I don't know where Shedeur fits into that original line of thinking, because I think that's important in all of this. And again, his play can change their plans. But I just don't know where his opportunity was going to come. If the plan was to redshirt him this year and then take another quarterback next year, when was he going to get a chance to actually get on the field and play?
Jason, one before we go, if you had to make a firm statement right now, are Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski back for 2026?
Berry, I think, is back, just based on the way that some things have been leaked and the way that it sounds. Kevin, I don't know. I mean, you can make a case for it. You can make a really easy case to fire him, right? 6 wins in 2 years is not enough. You can also, I think Jimmy can look at this and say, Deshaun wrecked everything, and when we actually had talent on offense, he was a pretty good coach. And so I think you can talk yourself into wanting to bring him back if he wants to come back. Again, this idea that maybe he wants out, I don't think it's totally far-fetched. I just don't know how realistic it is. I have no knowledge of it one way or the other. So I'm not sure on how this will go with Kevin. And there probably wasn't very long ago, I was of the assumption, because I always said Kevin got here first. Andrew came second. I think we've passed the point where that matters. And Andrew did have a really great draft this year. And we'll see. I don't know.
Jason, great stuff, buddy. Appreciate you. We'll talk to you down the line.
All right. Sorry for the interruptions, guys.
No worries at all, buddy.